Welcome to Pirate Living Podcast. We are your hosts, Kristen and Karan. On this podcast, we are highlighting ordinary people living extraordinary lives. These are pirates who take small, bold actions daily to create social change. Pirate life is all about rebelling and breaking the rules for good. Creating lasting social change starts by first breaking our inner rules. After all, the hardest rules to break are your own. The pirates we highlight have dedicated themselves to creating good trouble.
Joining us today is Dai Manuel. Dai is a super dad, a sought-after lifestyle mentor and executive performance coach, author of the Whole Life Fitness Manifesto, and TEDx speaker. Dai also happens to be the Chief Marketing Officer for Madlab Business Group and the Director of Marketing and Business Development for Madlab School of Fitness, where I just happen to coach, and have had the benefit of learning so much about marketing from Dai. Dai, we're really excited to have you on our podcast today.
Me too. I'm
Awesome.
super excited. I know we were supposed to meet earlier on a predetermined date, and I wasn't able to make it. But you know what? Thank you. I'm honored to be here. I'm excited to chat to you both, and also super cool as I become better in tune and understand better the theme of your podcast. And the conversation we had before we hit record was so enlightening, and I feel very inspired by some of these themes that I know we're going to dive into today. So thank you for the opportunity.
Cool. Well, yeah. Well, as we talked about, pirate living is all about stepping outside the norms and designing a life that you love. And the first step is to really give ourselves permission to follow our passions rather than doing what society or your parents or whomever has decided that we should be doing. So Dai, tell us the tale of how you broke free and started living a more pirate life.
Oh boy. Well, I guess, you've got sort of the metaphorical implication there, right? And then you've got the literal, like when I actually think about what's happened. But, there's been a few very distinct, I guess, milestones in my life. I'm going to date myself here. I'm 44 years young.
That's the perfect age, by the way.
Yes. 44. It's a good number too, right?
It is. 76. What?
Yes, that's right. What's your month?
October.
I'm November. Are you Scorpio then? Or
I am Scorpio. I'm right at the end of October. I knew it liked you. I knew.
I love it. So, in 44 years, obviously, there's been a lot of living and lots of experiences, lots of, let's just say, obstacles, challenges, and a lot of them were my own. Well, most of them were my own. But some of them, were external pressures or me just being in the wrong situation at probably not the right time. And we'll dive into that in a little bit. But, I love what you're asking because it's sort of that I'm a big fan of reverse engineering. Mm-hmm. In marketing, it's a common practice. We look at the outcome we want to create and then we figure out, well, what's the best story and steps to get to that result, right? And why not look at our life the same way? I mean, manufacturers in the tech industry have been reverse engineering stuff forever, like longer than we've been alive. And so there's a lot of value in understanding how to be the architects for our own life, the way we want to live. And I didn't really figure that out until about 11 years ago, because before that, I was really focused on trying to achieve certain levels of success. And I was really big on quantifying that. So it was like, how much money can I earn? How many possessions can I own? What do the Joneses think next door about us? Or like, I wanted the 2 kids, the picket fence, like all the usual things that I had envisioned was what I was meant to be going after. And then I started to realize, all these things that I was chasing, I just kept chasing them, never feeling fulfilled. Just as I thought I was getting to wherever I thought I was supposed to get to, I'd get there and I'd realize, okay, well, I made it, didn't I? Why aren't I happier? Why don't I feel more fulfilled? Why don't I feel more joy in my life? And I started to question everything and started really with my wife, pressing down, asking some tough questions. And, one of the questions was, like, how do you want us to raise our family? How do you want us to co-parent? How do you want us to celebrate our life? Like, how do we want to make an impact? just really these bigger kind of conversations rather than me just going to my regular career, coming home, doing the usual yada do, like the whole Flintstone thing, like literally, like I felt like it was just, day in, day out, Groundhog's Day. And that's tough, right? it's tough to get into that kind of at least what I felt was like a rut. And man, we started to envision what our life could look like, what kind of family it could look like, that we were raising. And especially our two daughters at the time were both close to the age of 10, and just coming into that sort of next pinnacle, period in their lives as they entered into that preteen years. And then eventually now they're 16 and 18 respectively. But, we started developing a vision for what we wanted our life to look like. And I mean, really fleshing that out, well, where do we want to live? Who do we want to be associating with? What are the kind of people we want to have relationships with? How do we want to make an impact? What kind of value do we want to give people, the world even, and so we developed a framework, that's largely inspired my book as well, the Whole Life Fitness Manifesto. We talk about the 5S, and we can get into that a little bit later, but this idea of reverse engineering is so useful, because once you've got the vision, you just start to ask yourself, okay, well, what are the steps I need to take to start at least head towards that direction? And for us, it involved massive 180 change, and this is just over 6 years ago. I was a founding partner for a fairly large company here in Canada called Fitness Town. And we sold fitness equipment and accessories all across Canada, as well as out of our brick and mortar operation. I had been doing that for 17 years, so that's what I mean. Day in, day out, felt like doing the same thing, and I thought that was what I was meant to be doing forever. To be quite frank, like I just thought, this is what I'm meant to be doing. This is like, I'm helping people, I'm making a good living, I'm supporting my family, but I didn't feel connected to it anymore. Felt like there was more. I wanted to do more. I wanted to make more impact. I wanted to have more experiences rather than this constant pressure, like I should be collecting things. And, consumerism was definitely alive and real in my life at that time. I remember just spending money for the sake of spending money, not even really knowing why the hell am I spending money. And so things shifted. I quit my career of 17 years. I quit it. I just yeah, I'm out. Peace, and my wife quit hers a month later. 3 months after that, we pulled the kids out of school, gave away all our stuff, packed up our SUV, said bye-bye, and we started heading south. We started traveling. We wanted to be more nomadic, and we wanted to have experiences now as a family living together full time. And we didn't know what it was going to look like. We didn't even know where we were going to go, where we would be sleeping half the time. But we were like, who cares? This is more in alignment. And we know, and we trust in ourselves that, hey, things are going to work out. And they certainly did. Now, there was a lot of other challenges, which we can get into later, but that was sort of the biggest learning lesson, because up to that point in time, I'd had lots of different struggles. And back to your original question, like there's some moments there that were very defining in my life, like overcoming morbid obesity as a child. In my teen years, I was morbidly obese, and that was really hard psychologically, especially emotionally. And for about 5 years of my life, I was in that state of unhealth. And, I made a big change at 15 years of age, and I never looked back since, but it took 20 months to get into a state where I really started to feel confident about my health and my well-being and my lifestyle. And, but I hadn't developed psychologically or emotionally yet. I was still a teen boy dealing with a lot of other things. And people often say, what was your biggest motivation for getting healthy? And if I'm perfectly honest with you both, I wanted a girlfriend. I wanted, and I've worked with a psychologist at a period in time to sort of deal with some of the old trauma and work through some of those things. And, what ultimately that meant was I just wanted somebody else to love me and to want me for who I was. And up to that point in my life, I just felt like I didn't have that. And that's what I wanted. It's what motivated me to start making some changes to my health, because I believed I needed to be somebody different to be able to attract that, and that wasn't correct thinking, but that's what I believed at that time. I wasn't able to love myself. And anyways, I'm off on lots of different tangents here. I know there's lots that we can unpack, but what I'm trying to say is, in these 44 years, I've had quite a few journeys. I've been marooned on a lot of shores. And thank goodness I've had pretty good communities to be able to plug in with to help me when I've got stuck. And that's why, when you told me about the reference of the crew, having a crew, it's so critical. you got to have that community. Without the community, I know I wouldn't be where I am today. And CrossFit Vancouver, now known as Madlab, it was a big part of that change for me a number of years ago too. It was just that community, getting around that group, that vibe, that ability to just have people that were there to support each other, just to live healthier, and be doing fun things. And so, yeah, anyways, sorry for manipulating the mic for about 7 minutes there.
All good.
Loved it.
So going back to when you guys packed up and left, went and hit the road, which I love. So we talked a little bit earlier about how living that pirate life is really about following your own inner compass, living on the edges of the map rather than following someone else's map. And I'm wondering, where did you guys go? Where did those travels take you?
Well, initially, it was January when we were finally getting on the road. We timed it so it was at the same time my book was being released. We were going to kick off this sort of we call it the Whole Life Fitness Manifesto road trip, WLFM road trip. Yeah, it was pretty cool because we decided we were going to go south. We want to chase the sun, get away from Vancouver and the rain.
You don't like the rain?
No, I don't mind it, but we are sun seekers. We like warm weather, warm climates, which you'll understand why a certain decision that we made a few years after starting our travels happened. But we decided to go south. Eventually made our way down to California, where we hung out for 3.5 months or so, different places around California. Christy, my wife, had some family down there, family members in San Diego, someone in LA, someone in Palm Springs. So we had places that we could sort of, catch a couch here or a floor there, or even a spare bedroom in Palm Springs was really nice. Her grandparents had a place there. So we had places that we could at least camp out for a little bit longer, because we are naturally slow travelers. Like, we like going places, but hanging out there for a bit. This frenetic sort of, having to pack everything up, go to a place by a certain time on a certain night, and then have to be on the road again the next morning. Yeah, it was too challenging for us. Like, we just got stressed out. As I said, my kids were also both around 10, and being in the car all the time can be really challenging. And so it doesn't matter how many devices you got. Trust me, it doesn't. You can only keep them distracted so long, And so we would often stop a lot, and so we wanted to reduce that pressure. And so we started traveling all over the U.S. And then in the summer came back to Canada, traveled around Canada, and then the next year went back down south again. And why we were staying in North America was my father was ill, and he was dealing with pancreatic cancer. That was a big thing preventing us from going overseas, because we had aspirations to travel overseas, to really become more worldly in our views. My wife, before I met her, she was already an avid traveler, from the age of about 18 to her early 20s. She was all over the world. Lived in Australia a couple times, Southeast Asia. Like, she had a travel bug, let's just say, and it never went away. It was always there. And one of her dreams was to be able to travel as a family as the kids got older. So it was nice to be able to fulfill that as well. And my dad, it progressed, it got worse and worse. And I remember I was back in Canada for a media tour. I was doing the how to lose weight with the bacon diet. And that was the pitch I put out to media, because I was contracted by Bulletproof, Dave Asprey and his company, to do a media tour talking about Bulletproof coffee, basically, and some of their products. But, you got to work that in without, being a blatant advertisement on morning television. So I made up this pitch about, I'll come on and I'll talk about how you can lose weight eating bacon. And they're like, no, you won't. You won't do that. And I'm like, yeah, I will. And, it's tongue in cheek. I came in just sort of talking about ketosis and all that stuff. But while I was on that tour, I remember being in the airport in Winnipeg and getting a call from my dad. And oh man, that was like the hardest call ever. It's back. He was in remission, came back, and it was like, we can't do anything. It was that call where it's just like, we know time is definitely of the essence now. And we knew that we probably had about 3 to 6 months at that point. So my family and I, and this is funny how things work out, I just, we talk about manifestation. We talk about positive mental attitudes. We talk about this idea of attracting certain things into our life. And I used to always think, yeah, it sounds great. I think it's all bullshit. You know, I used to be that guy. I was like, it's all just a bunch of hooey. And the more I just embraced it, especially as I got into my 30s and became more open, more open to different ways of looking at things, different ways of thinking about things. Also getting to the point where I was like, I can't be so arrogant to think I know everything. Like, gosh, man, like give your head a shake. Because that was me. It was just my false way of sort of wearing a mask to try to be, position myself as somebody important. You know, like, again, I was so ego focused, you know, and yet I wasn't at the same time. Like, that's why it's a really weird sort of dynamic. I was, on the professional side, very driven based on ego. And then on the personal side, a lot of the time it wasn't ego at all. And I wasn't able to reconcile the two worlds. And that's what created a lot of challenges. And it's also why I used to drink a lot, based on the anxiety and the stress that I would feel as a result of these two polar opposite worlds not being able to commingle because I wasn't willing to bridge them or figure out a way to do it. And so because we had just embarked on this nomadic lifestyle of just trying to figure things as we go. And I was trying to earn money online because I was like, I want us to be able to do this forever, but listen, we need to have an income. I may have left a company that was rather successful, but I didn't leave at a good time. And I didn't care. I was just like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And so I didn't have money to retire on. And, but we weren't going to limit money. We weren't going to let money get in the way of us pursuing what we want. We just had to figure out other ways of doing it with a certain budget in mind. And we did that. And, so as I was building my online businesses at that time, we had the luxury to be able to go and hang out with my dad, to go and live with him during that final stages of his life. And that is something, and that was out in Ontario. Had I stayed in my career and stayed, in the lifestyle that we were leading, we wouldn't have had that ability. Like, we would have been able to take some time to go and to be with him, but to be able to see him every day and to connect with him and just be in his presence while he was going through that final journey, it's priceless. Like, I'm just so grateful for that time, and I also learned a lot during that time. And then he passed. A few months after he passed, we were like, well, I think we can go overseas now. And we chose Bali. We chose Bali, Indonesia. We were like, well, let's go there for 3 months and just check it out and just rent a place on Airbnb. We'll just hang out there. We'll live amongst the locals. We'll meet some of the communities. We'll see what it's like living in a developing country, but also somewhere in Southeast Asia where the climate is definitely more to our liking. This weather we've been having this week in Vancouver is so reminiscent of Bali. It's like, wow, this is great, And so we got there, we stayed there for 3 months and ended up turning into 2.5 years. So Bali has that effect. You get there and it's kind of it's a hard place to leave because it's just a wonderful lifestyle. And so, that was sort of it. We got overseas and then eventually we moved back here to Vancouver just before the pandemic because our kids, we always wanted to honor that if they wanted to come back to Vancouver to finish their high school, we would honor it. And they played that card. And so we relocated back. And it was funny, again, how things work out. We moved back. We were back here a few months before the pandemic even started. I mean, there was no even conversation about COVID. And yet here we were back in Vancouver, safe, healthy, settled in again and been able to ride out things relatively well, And and so that brings us up to right now. Like, we're back. Do we plan to travel? Heck yeah. My eldest just graduated. We got 2 more years for my youngest to graduate. And as soon as she graduates, trust me, we're gone again. But our goal is to be 6 months away and then 6 months in Vancouver. And can't beat Vancouver in the summertime. It's pretty beautiful here. But the winter, Bali, Southeast Asia looks a lot nicer.
Definitely. But, once the borders open, Kristen's down in Oregon. So once the borders open, we're going to bring her up, show her a summer in Vancouver here.
I love it. Oh, Oregon's beautiful.
It is.
I love Oregon. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Where was it that we stayed? Gosh, I forget the name of it. We stayed in a place for about a week while we were going through Oregon as we started our travels. And we rented a place on Vacasa, and it was like right on the water, but in this little like sleepy community along the highway, right, that goes along the coastline. And I forget where it was. Yakutsk? Is that the place?
That is a
Yakutsk?
place, yeah.
Okay,
Or
Yakutsk.
Yakutsk or something, yeah.
Yeah, something like again, I'm Canadian, sorry.
I'm from Michigan.
But we stayed there and I was like, what a cool place. Like Oregon's got tons of just beautiful communities, you know, and it's especially Cannon Beach, right? It's Cannon Beach,
Yeah.
Goonies. Yeah. So, anyways, I love Oregon. That's beautiful. Super cool. I can't wait to come down there and visit when these stupid borders open. Huh?
Right. Yeah, next time you're through.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Yes.
Cool.
Just going back to your travels, how did living for that time in Bali reshape you, or what did that give you?
Well, there's something exciting about traveling, right? I think there's a certain attraction. I wasn't somebody that naturally was like, yay, travel. You know, I think I was. My wife, yes, very much so. She loves the variety. She likes meeting new people. She's just one of those kinds of people that, you know, you put her in a room where she knows nobody. By the end of it, she knows everybody, you know, like it's just awesome that way. Yeah. And I think that's why we complement each other, because I'm naturally introverted. And I choose to put myself out there. I choose to try to be as extroverted as I can, because a lot of what my business is involves me having to be extroverted, you know, so it is a choice I make. So it drains me a lot. So if I'm given the option to sort of get in my default mode, you know, like even like as an example at Madlab, you know, I show up there and it's like, I'm there, I'm working out. I'm not really talking to many people. Like I don't know most of the people there, which is, you know, that's on me. Like but it's just, that's my default. It's my happy place. When I go there, I'm there with the intention to get a good sweat on, have some fun, but it's just different, right? And I'm working on it. It's always a work in progress. I'm trying to be more open and inviting, especially as I've been reminded by people that are like, you're pretty intimidating. I'm like, I'm intimidating? What are you talking about? But they're like, you're pretty intimidating. You know, we're 6 foot, over 200 pounds, you know, like you're a pretty loud dude at times when you want to be. So I guess I might push people away sometimes, but I'm conscious of that and aware of it. And so, you know, this Bali experience for me was a big eye opener, because it's my first time doing something that wasn't like going to an all-inclusive. Okay. Like that was my extent of travels. It was like, we go to Mexico, we might go, you know, and that was really about it. We went to Mexico a bunch of times over our time together. And so this is my first time doing extended travel overseas, especially in a developing country. So for me, there's a lot of, you know, fears that were obviously in the back of my mind, which we were fortunate enough to be able to quell a lot of those concerns just by talking to people that were expats, people that had established themselves there, and people that have been going to Bali for years and years for prolonged periods. And because there's amazing communities. It's a cool thing about Facebook, you know, it's like there's communities for everything. And so we joined a bunch of communities, and I'm a big fan of Toastmasters. I found out there was a Toastmasters club not far from where we were staying. And so I went up to Toastmasters. I knew it'd be a great place to meet some fellow people that are, you know, have similar aspirations. Toastmasters tends to attract people that have certain aspirations. You know, the people that want to become more effective communicators. They want to develop leadership skills. Like it's a nonprofit, so it's like really cheap to go. It's just time and energy, but you get to meet some pretty cool people. So we started going to different events, you know, that were put up in the co-working spaces. And so for people that are thinking about traveling, and you're going to do prolonged or extended travel, look for co-working spaces. Great way to meet people that are like of that sort of, I guess they'd be more in alignment with the pirate type of people that you're referring to. You know, they're people that have said, listen, I don't want to do the 9 to 5. I want to figure out something different. I want to work for myself. I want to travel. I want to experience life, you know, and you go into co-working spaces as you travel, it's pretty impressive. You know, you meet a lot of those types of people. And I found that inspired me a ton. Just meeting, like, gosh, I was meeting like kids, like, and I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that because it sounds like I'm speaking down, but I'm not. Like, they're like these guys that were like, this one guy, 19 years old, and there's this other dude that was 22. It was a Sam. Sam was the 22-year-old. You know, and they had Shopify stores. And, you know, just sort of figuring out all drop shipping, which is, again, something that I wasn't really familiar with, because I mean, I come from a retail background. I know e-commerce, but I'd never done any like drop ship type stuff. And so all of a sudden I was being open to so many different things or different ways that people were creatively building businesses that were not my typical box that I believed, oh, if you're going to build a business, there's certain things that you got to do and certain things you have to have. And like, I was just very limited in my scope based on my experiences to that point in life. And all of a sudden I just realized, man, I really don't know much about this whole thing. And I want to know more. And so, you start to connect with these people, and, these guys were making like serious money, 6-figure incomes, living on beaches, traveling wherever they want, and working maybe a couple hours a day, like, it's like, hello, how does this work? But it was amazing. We went to Thailand and we did a little bit of travel there. We went to Malaysia, did a little bit of travel there. Like, it was nice having a home base in Southeast Asia, in Bali, because it was easy to travel everywhere else around Southeast Asia. And we just kept meeting great people like that with these inspiring stories, doing inspiring things. And you just can't help but that stuff rubs off on you. And so that was one of the things that really impacted me and my wife, was we just started to gain a lot more confidence in ourselves and our ability to learn and grow, but also to continue to make an impact. And so we tried a bunch of different stuff because we could. We also just enjoyed life while we were living there and meeting great people, enjoying the food, love the culture there. We lived in an area called Umalas, which is next to well, it's part of Canggu, and Canggu is the surf side of Bali. And we loved it because we lived at the end of a gang, which is their word for alley, so down at the end of the gang. It was not a through road, and we lived amongst all these Indonesian families. So it was super cool, right? It was a neat experience. And yeah, so that was one. And then on the spiritual side, I definitely got opened up to a lot of things. And that's where I really started to do a lot more men's work, specifically facilitating men's groups. Because one thing I noticed in my life was, and I can't speak for other men that are probably listening or watching this, but for myself, as I told you, I was very ego driven. Right. I know it was always my ego sort of directing where I was going, what I was doing. Like, it was all about appearances, which is exhausting, and I realized that it used to shield me and shelter me from other men. Like, I really had very few close relationships with other men. And even the ones that I did have close relationships with, it was still rather surface. I mean, we didn't ever really go that deep in our conversations unless it was fueled by alcohol. And even then, by that point, you get a few drinks in, you don't even remember what you talked about anyways. I didn't have a very good relationship with other men. And I realized that was a big part that was missing from my life. And I'd never been role modeled any other way of doing things. I believed all the cliches, men don't cry, like, vulnerability, that's a weakness. Don't do that. You don't want to tell somebody how you're actually feeling and what's going on in your life right now. No. They'll use that against you. They'll if we play with the piracy thing, it's like, no, there'll be mutiny here. You can't do that. Like, these guys are going to take me over and take me out. And that was sort of how I lived, and I started to really open up to things. A good friend of mine, Nick, who co-facilitates our Mentorship Monday gatherings. So that's what we call it, Mentorship Mondays. And dinner and conversation, a bunch of guys coming together for about 90 minutes every Monday. And we started facilitating that in Bali, like in Canggu, at this facility that I partnered with. And it's called Nirvana Strength. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it. Check it out, Nirvana Strength. Anybody goes to Bali, you want to train there. This, first and foremost, you guys would love this. Karan, you would like lose your noodle. You got to look them up on Instagram. Like, it is, Nirvana Strength is like awesome, but it's all calisthenics. It's a calisthenics gym. And these guys are like old school gymnastic body guys that love that, but wanted to start their own thing. And so they built this beautiful facility. Like, it is, I mean, if it was here in Vancouver, it would be a multi-million-dollar facility. However, being in Bali, it has the appearance of a multi-million-dollar facility, but budget's much better. And so here we were facilitating this weekly gathering, thinking that, I wonder if there's other guys that would like to connect and connect without the drugs, without the alcohol, without the drama, and just have real conversation. Talk about what's alive and real for us. I'm like, do you think there's other guys out there that might find value and that want to do that? Or am I like the only guy that's thinking this? And so I called my buddy Nick, who I had been to a birthday party. This is his 40th birthday party up in Ubud. For those that don't know what Ubud is, it's in the middle of Bali. It's out in the sort of jungle. And it's like if you watched Eat, Pray, Love or read that book, when she talks about Bali, it's usually the Ubud part of Bali. Very, it's like the yoga, like Mecca. Okay. Like, it is like you go there to do yoga or to do spiritual stuff, to discover yourself again. And he had this 40th birthday where he invited all these men for a men's circle. It was the first time I'd ever experienced this. It was like dudes howling at the moon, like tarps off, like this. It was just like this really, I'm gonna say it's strange experience for me because it was the first time, and I wasn't comfortable. I didn't really enjoy myself there. I felt it really hard to open up, and I realized that that kind of men's circle wasn't my fit for me. And interesting enough, I started to share that with some people. I said, I went to a men's circle. I get it, but that's just not for me. The eye gazing things, like all this stuff. I get it. I'm sure it serves a purpose. I don't resonate with this. And that was what sort of inspired me to I want to start my own. And this is what it's going to look like. Let's see if it works. Called up Nick and he's like, yeah, he's living up in Ubud. I'm living down in Canggu. So it's been an hour drive both ways, each way. And he's like, oh, I'll come and check it out and I'll be there. And he was the first guy to say, yes, I'll be there. And I had 4 other guys show up. So it was about 6 of us that first time. And then it just kept growing. Guys would talk to other guys, be like, what? There's this Mentorship Monday thing. You get to go and you hang out and you actually just talk. You talk about whatever and anything and everything, whatever's live and real for you right now. And for most guys, especially myself, this is novel, first time ever, not being worried to just say how I'm feeling right now. What am I struggling with? What am I winning at in life, and not have any worry that I'm being judged. And because everything else before that was relationships that were often built on maybe positional authority, meaning that I might have employed them or been seen as their boss or employer. And there's always that sort of gray zone in that kind of a relationship because, you've got this professional hat when you're working your 9 to 5 and you're hanging out with these people. And then there's the off-hour relationship. And again, I told you, I struggled with reconciling the two, and it definitely showed in how some of those relationships went, and many of them I'm not connected with anymore, past coworkers, so only a very few. And so, yeah, those are some of the biggest shifts I took away from Bali. Also realizing that the minimalist lifestyle is something that my family really thrive in, we don't have a lot of stuff. We like it that way. And it made us very confident that, as a family, we can be pretty resilient. We don't need very much to be happy and feel fulfilled. And so that was probably the biggest lessons that I took away from the experience of living in Bali.
And you mentioned, the question you keep asking, or you ask in the mentorship is, what's alive and real for you right now? That and at the beginning, you were questioning everything with your wife as well. In those questionings, it sounds like a pirate code of sorts came to life with your was it Manifesto? Is that what you?
Yes.
Yeah. So what did you create while asking all those questions?
Oh, geez. Okay, that's a great question, Kristen. Okay, well, all right. There's a little bit of backstory to this. Let me give you a little bit of backstory there. I got really burnt out. Okay, this is when I was still at Fitness Town. I was the COO and the CMO, and also on top of that, a partner. And I've got a work ethic is one thing that was role modeled by my parents. People that would watch and probably not really know them would presume that they were workaholics. Okay, they had a really strong work ethic, but they were also people that just were very driven. And that was one lesson that I got from my parents growing up. And it was something that I definitely carried with me to a fault at times, and so all of a sudden, as my responsibilities are growing, as the company was growing, I was always that person that would say, I can say yes to anything, whatever, another opportunity. Okay. Yeah. Because of that fear of missing out and I said yes way too much to the point of spreading myself way too thin. And then on top of that, the way that I would manage a lot of that stress and the anxiety was alcohol, sometimes narcotics, really poor lifestyle choices, but I would justify it because I'm stressed, I'm overloaded. I need some chill out time. I need some downtime. I need to relax, and what better way to relax? Get wasted, Anyways, really weird, right? It feels like a completely different person ago. But during that stint where I really got burnt out, even hospitalized, I have a chronic autoimmune disease, and maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later, because that's definitely affected lifestyle choices along the way. But I realized that I need some time for me. I need to get right. I need to get clarity. And my wife and I had already started having some conversations at various periods in our life about dream building and just trying to create a family vision, a cohesive vision we can both align with, get the family on board with. Like, really, it's a family vision. We have our individual things too, but it's nice to have a shared goal, or at least a direction that we're all sort of working towards. And because then we can support each other and we can have fun, just like, this is our journey. Let's make it a fun one. Like, why not? Like, if you're going to go, you might as well enjoy yourself along the way. I mean, geez, if you're not smiling every day, like, hello, you're probably not doing it right. So here I was, burnt out. And my partner at the time, business partner, he's like, just take some time. And so I did. I took off to Ontario from Vancouver to go visit my family and just unplug. But my brain was going. And I remember on the plane ride from Vancouver to Toronto, 5-hour flight, I was writing a ton, just based on some of the questions that were coming up. Like, what do I want? What actually makes me happy? What are my non-negotiables in my life? The values that I would never negotiate with, like family, my fitness, faith, right? Like, just some basic things. Like, those are non-negotiable. They're part of my life, and it was nice to have that clarity in the document. Anyways, I wrote like 15 pages, like 15 pages of stuff that I envisioned for my life for the next 10 years at that point. And, so I would have been 36, 37 at that time. And, when I think about it, in that manifesto, I talked about my vision for the company and the path that I was on. So, like, I was trying to work that in there. At that time, I hadn't decided that, this isn't a fit for me anymore. The things that I want can't be provided by this vehicle. Like, it wasn't, I wasn't at that place yet. So I wrote this manifesto. I shared all my visions, what I wanted to do before I was 45. One of those things was do a TED Talk, like, so I wanted to do a TED Talk. I wanted to write and publish a book. I wanted my family to have way more time together. I wanted us to travel together and experience the world. I wanted to speak on stages around the world, but also I had this massive vision for the company and what I envisioned that the industry needed. And I think this is why I resonate with Madlab Group so much, is we share the idea that fitness industry is broken. That's another conversation entirely, and hopefully we'll get there, because Karan, I know you have an opinion on that too. And Kristen, I'm sorry, we haven't talked yet, but I imagine you do as well. And most of us do. It's funny. We know that the system is not working as well as it can. And yet it just keeps moving forward, doesn't it? And so I had this big vision of, like, this is what we need to do to help the industry evolve into something awesome. I remember giving that to my business partner. So I typed it all up, formatted it, made it look really good, talked about the company, talked about my personal life, talked about things I wanted to do, where I wanted to go, what I wanted to experience, how I wanted to make an impact. He didn't read it. He didn't read it. Somebody I'd worked with for, at that point, over 15 years. Now, one of my first mentors. He never really read it, never really had a discussion on it, never, just didn't go anywhere. And that was the first sign. That was like sort of that kink in the armor, that expression, that was where I was like, sheesh. Well, not, 80% of what I wrote doesn't involve the company. That's what I want. So that company part, I guess we'll just have to cut that out, and that was like, whoa, okay. I've been here. Like, this is my career since, pretty much my entire adult life. Like, this is what I know, is what I do well at. I had never envisioned leaving that. And all of a sudden here I am, like, I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave it. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to transition and do something else. I don't know what that is, but I'm going to do something else. And my wife was so excited. She'd been dripping on me about travel, and she was encouraging and supportive and dealt with all my drama because I was stressed to the max about the concept of leaving. Like, am I being irresponsible? I remember people saying, what, you guys pulled your kids out of school? Like, that's child abuse, And I'm like, what the hell? Like, unfriend, block you. But I'm like, I don't even want to get into that debate, and don't tell me how to parent. Like, gosh, go get your own kids. Anyways, and so, yeah, that was it. That was how it started. And I gave over a year's notice. I think it was actually 15 months notice I gave that I'd be leaving. Because, when you're in that kind of a responsible role, it's not like something you say, okay, I'm not coming into work tomorrow or ever. That wouldn't have been leaving on a good note. And as I told you, my parents role modeled some pretty good ethics into me. And I will never leave people high and dry. But so, yeah, that was sort of how it all got started. And that was that manifesto, that I had wrote. And some of that was involving fitness and well-being and specifically, how to enrich ourselves physically, emotionally, spiritually, as well as psychologically. And so I put together a simple program for people to plug and play with, because after almost now 26 years in the fitness space, I see the same objections all the time, same excuses over and over and over and over and over. You know what I mean? Like, it's the same one. So I was like, I'm going to put something together that deals with all of those, every single one. So there's no more excuse. It's only you and your health and well-being and you actually taking action. And so that was sort of where all that went. And yeah, sorry, that was a long answer to a fairly simple question.
It was a great answer.
It was great. Yeah. I mean, a couple of things. First of all, your wife sounds a total pirate. Like, sorry, she sounds more pirate than you.
Oh, no, she is. No, seriously, I was the second mate. Okay, like trust me, she's the captain. She's the one in charge. And or as she always will say, I might be the head of the relationship, but she's the neck down, and the neck down controls it all. So that's the way it operates. And but yes, you're absolutely right. She is.
That's awesome. Just kind of going back to the work that you're doing now and your men's group. What's social rebellion? I mean, piracy is all about social rebellion. So what social rebellion have you started, or are you looking to start with the work that you're doing now?
So that's a great question. There's a few different channels that I like to, I always call it play, I'm playing it, like I do. I still love health, fitness, fitness specifically because it is the direct conduit that can often make the greatest amount of impact in our health, like just by doing fitness type activities, moving the body with a purpose to create a positive adaptation, right? Like whether it be just to even get a sweat on, elevate my heart rate, because it also releases some great endorphins, right? There's a lot of feel-good hormones that get circulated when we exercise. So I've realized it's one of those things that we never regret doing. I would never call both of you and say, oh man, I really regret working out. It's like, I've never had a client tell me, you know what, Dai, you've been making me eat this big green salad with some lean protein on it every lunch for the last week. Man, I regret eating that salad. There's certain things that we just don't regret. And then there's certain things that we always regret. Missing a workout, I regret. I regret showing myself some love and showing my body, I love you, man. I want to keep you in tip top, right? So you can navigate all these amazing experiences that you have for the next 50 years, And so there's that deep connection to why I believe fitness is such a powerful conduit to see our health improve. And it's simple. It's not that hard to do, but it takes commitment. Right. And we got to follow through with that commitment and build some momentum, hopefully. And so with that, I'm sorry, I'm getting way off track here. Where was I going with that? Like, you got to reel me back. Social rebellion. Sorry. So things all got started. So, in the online space, I especially as Facebook really started to take off about a decade ago, like before that, it was still popular. It was growing a lot, but there's been lots of shifts in how Facebook operates constantly. It's always changing. But, when they really started to integrate the group function and put a lot of weight into the group aspect and community spaces on Facebook, I was like, this is super cool. What a great way to connect people from around the world with a common cause or a common belief or a common want, or maybe it's all of those together. And my wife and I, we love to inspire, motivate, and educate people. and hopefully do it in a fun way. That's sort of our filters for anything that we put out there that's forward facing, meaning like anything that's online, anything that we post online, it usually checks any one of those boxes, if not all of them. Is this educational? Is it inspirational? Is it motivational? And are we doing it in a fun and authentic way?
Mm-hmm.
If we can honestly say yes to those, we're all about sharing, because we're sharing to hopefully achieve that, to show people, not necessarily tell people, but to show them what's possible. Mm-hmm. If you just start to do things a little bit differently, and so I remember I had this idea. I was like, okay, I'm going to do an online challenge. This is before all the challenges really started to take off. And there was other challenges that were offline, but these ones started just appearing online. And I was like, I'm going to do a challenge just to see if we can get people moving. And I did this thing called the 300 a day challenge. And I remember it was a Sunday morning. My wife and I on Sunday mornings would typically go and we would volunteer our time at one of my retail stores where we would host free morning workouts. And we called them Sunday Fun Days, and we built the Sunday Fun Day community. And it was almost like a petri dish for me because I was able to experiment with people.
Mm-hmm.
I was volunteering my time. People weren't paying to be there. There was no hidden agenda. Obviously, it was good PR for Fitness Town because we'd take photos of the groups and the workouts and share them on social, tag people. So it brought a lot of brand awareness for Fitness Town. Great PR. But that wasn't the intention for doing it. The intention was to help people that are intimidated by fitness develop a healthier relationship with themselves, their bodies, but also with this modality called fitness. Learn how to have fun with it, and build a community at the same time. So we started to build this community. I remember we'd have 3 people show up to do a workout with us. Then it got to the point where we were doing 4 sessions every Sunday morning, 4 hours of classes. We'd see over 80 people. Sometimes we do it in the park where we get up to 100 people showing up. And it was awesome. Just a wonderful community, great friendships created. We learned a lot. But we wanted to start producing that online. How do we do this online? How do we impact more people? So I told my wife, I'm going to do this 300 a day challenge. Here's what it looks like. For 30 days, people are going to commit to do 100 reps of push-ups, 100 reps of sit-ups, 100 reps of squats. 300 reps every day for 30 days. My wife's like, actually, do you guys get an explicit rating on this?
You can say whatever you want.
Okay. My wife's like, fuck no, I'm not doing that. She's like, you're crazy. And she's like, no one's going to do that. And I'm like, well, fuck you. I'm doing it anyway. And we're good that way. We can butt heads pretty well. She's anyways, tinge of ginge. Okay. Full on Reddit. And, she's fiery. So I'm like, I'm doing it. And I posted it. I created an event page, invited people, made some parameters, made some videos on social, shared it out, and just started inviting people to commit to it. No joke of a lie. 48 hours in, 1,300 people.
Ooh.
1,300 people. I was like, holy crap, that's more than we've ever impacted in our Sunday Fun Day sessions. Like literally, like even though we'd been doing Sunday Fun Days for, I think by that point, maybe 6 to 7 months. And, we were scaling it. It was growing, but it was always the same people coming. Like 1,300 people, 48 hours.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, wow, this online thing, there's something to it. This is pretty cool. And it was cool because people were posting photos of them doing their workouts in different places. So that was the thing. You can do this anywhere, anytime. Don't need much space. You could do 10 reps in the morning, 10 reps at noon, break it up. It doesn't matter when you do it. It's just get it done. Just put the reps in. And I remember there was somebody that was over in Egypt, like near the pyramid, and they posted a photo of them doing the workout. It was so cool to see. Mm-hmm. And I think when we tallied it, we were in almost like 20 countries or something like that. Wow. And almost every continent. Like, it was like, wow. And it was free. Like, there's no hidden agenda. It was just like, let's just see if we can build some camaraderie and community and excitement for people to move their body. And so there was a lot that we learned through that experience. As people that were helping facilitate and motivate and keep people engaged, but also for ourselves from an accountability standpoint, because I was doing it every day and posting about it and sharing and just trying to keep the excitement for everybody going and, coach, really, just try to be a coach and mentor. And it was just awesome. It was really, really cool. And from there, it's spun off into lots of different things. It inspired eventually my book. It also inspired other communities that we built. We used to do a lot of fundraising for BC Children's Hospital. We would do the Grind for Kids every year, build teams to the Grind, Kristen, if you're not familiar, is basically a nature stairmaster. It's a hill on the north shore of Vancouver that's 2.9 kilometers, but it's just basically a staircase going up a hill.
Oh.
And
by hill he means hill he means Grouse Mountain.
It sounds like a mountain in Colorado Springs that has something similar.
Oh, yep. I would say so.
Yeah, I think they call theirs the cog. So
that sounds aggressive. So we would do that, and we'd commit to raising certain funds, collect pledges, and it was just a wonderful cause. So, but we learned that there's power in community. Like it's never fun to do things by ourselves. Well, I mean, maybe there are some things, but but it's that impact piece, right? Like, and when I mentioned faith as being a guiding value for us, I'm not talking about denominational faith. I'm not talking about any specific religion. I'm talking about just faith in humanity, faith in purpose. That connection that we have with why we do the things that we do. Why do we get up every morning? What's motivating us to get out of bed every day? And underlying all that is like, whenever I leave this planet, I hope I leave it in better shape than it was when I got here. And that's what I refer to when I say faith. And of course, when I'm sharing that, I let people, if faith is tied to a religion, that's great for you. That's what faith can mean. But this is what faith means to me, And so that's sort of tied in, those F's that I talked about, the 5 F's in the Whole Life Fitness Manifesto. We really started to design our life to be reflective of those core values: fitness, faith, family, finances, overarching roof of fun, built on a foundation of health. And that's sort of what became that foundational piece that's helped direct us and filter some of the decisions we've had to make in our life over the last decade, but more specifically the last 6 years. And we'll continue to use those as just guidelines to help us navigate things. But that's sort of that social rebellion piece. And then the Mentorship Mondays was just, I took a lot of what I learned from some of these early groups that I used to facilitate, to just facilitate a really positive experience for other men to come together and practice a skill called vulnerability. Notice I call it a skill because it is a skill, like any other thing. Like you want to be an effective communicator, it's a public speaker, go to an organization like Toastmasters. They're going to help you do it, and you still got to practice. Find a safe place to practice. It's nice, it's reassuring, and there's no worry about making mistakes or trying to do things right or not right, or appearances, right, or impressions. And so to create a bubble like that can provide men with that safe space to practice being more open, talking about what's alive and real for them right now, not next week, not last week, not 10 years ago, right now, present moment. What's going on for you? Where are you at? You ecstatic? You having the time of your life? You having some big wins? Or are you feeling challenged? Or the conversation for the last month's been a lot around the topic of languishing. I don't know if you've heard that term, languishing, but psychologists have coined it. It's those people that aren't necessarily thriving, but they're not barely surviving. They're sort of in the middle, and they're sort of like, I'm okay. Not great, but I'm okay. Things are okay. So it's this sort of gray area in between thriving and surviving. And a lot of people, especially the men in our communities, have been feeling that way. I know myself, I've gone through a period of about 3 months where I felt a lot like that this year. And it's a hard place to be, because what do you do? How do you get out of it? How do you navigate yourself through that? And having that community of other guys talking about what's working for them, what's been helping them get more connected and feeling happier again. It's helped, it's helped me. I know it's helped them, and it's helped others, especially their families and communities. And so that's right now, you asked about social rebellion, that's the piece that I'm most passionate about and excited about.
Very cool. I feel like we keep talking to you for like another 2 hours. And I'm also
Sorry, I can go on tangents though. Oh my gosh.
No, they're great.
They're great.
Yeah. And I'm also very aware that you've got an appointment to get to.
Okay. We're getting till 1:30.
Okay.
I'm sorry, 1:30.
And you've actually answered a lot of our questions, right?
Cool.
Because you've talked a lot about all the actions, the bold actions that you've taken in your life. You've talked about some of the uncomfortable questions that you ask in order to make these changes. I would like to know a little bit more about your TED Talk, your TEDx talk.
Well, so 11 years ago, actually 11 and a half years ago now, my goodness, it'll be 12 years in January. But, I think we all can relate to the expression rock bottom. We hear that and we're like, oh yeah, I've hit rock bottom. I can't say everybody, but I like to think the people, pretty much everybody I know has expressed that sentiment at some point in their life. They feel like you've just gotten to a dead end. You've gotten to rock bottom. You just feel like, oh my gosh, things couldn't get any worse. Like that's sort of just that doom and gloom feeling that it doesn't matter what I do, I'm stuck here. And I felt that. I felt like I was there, and not just rock bottom, but I was under the rock. Okay. Like it was like, oh, it doesn't matter how much I train, I'm not pressing this up, like I am stuck. And I remember just feeling out of control. And the weird thing is, and I like to make sure I stress this, there wasn't any money stress, like it wasn't like, I had a good income. We had a nice lifestyle. Like everything was, from the outside looking in, most people believe that, we were living an idyllic life, and in many ways we were. But we were living the way we wanted to live. However, there was this sort of dark area in this piece of me where I, as I mentioned before, I was having a hard time reconciling sort of my personal and my professional. And I brought a lot of the professional back home with me all the time. So I wasn't able to just unplug. And I was just very lopsided, okay, on the work life balance, if that even exists. But at least at that time, I felt like it didn't. And it was a constant struggle trying to balance these things. But work always went out. I always prioritized work first and foremost. My responsibilities. I have to do this stuff. I got to do this, Christy. Sorry, I can't be there for the kids tonight. I can't do the pickup after school. No, I got this thing with work. And it just became less and less fulfilling. Like just this feeling like I was a prisoner in my own life. And that sucks, it really sucks. Like it feels like there's no more potential. And I had learned early on in life, especially in my late teen years, that, wow, I can forget about a lot of stress and anxiety by having a few drinks. I also realized that when I have a few drinks, this person that I believe is quite introverted becomes quite extroverted, like, wow, this is kind of neat. And it got to a point where I had a reputation. There was a certain awareness. And I was going to say, Karan, if you talk to Patty, ask him about the early days when we first met. Like you've probably heard some of the stories of the original CrossFit Vancouver, and it's got it had a reputation. Let's just put it that way. Yeah. And I fit right in. Okay. And some of those epic golf trips, which we will never talk about, but that was who I was. Those are some of my habits. And it got to a point where it was just becoming the dominant habit. It was way easier for me to uncork a bottle at the end of the day than to have a serious conversation with my wife, to be present for my kids. It just became this an easy out. And this habit just became so ingrained that if ever I wasn't leaning into that habit, I felt anxiety to the max. And that's the funny thing, right? It's like all of a sudden now I remove the alcohol and I feel even more anxious, some people are like, well, were you an alcoholic? And I was like, I never felt like I was powerless against alcohol. It wasn't alcohol driving my decision to have the drink every night. I never felt like I needed it, but I wanted it. I chose to have it, didn't matter. Whatever else is, I'm choosing to have my wine right now. I'm going to have wine tonight. And, oh, well, I drank the bottle. Well, better open another one, like it was just really, really easy. And it got to a point where things were getting exponentially harder and harder. I was failing at work. I wasn't filling up to most of my responsibilities. I was missing out on appointments, which I never miss. Like normally I'm the guy that shows up 15 minutes early, or else I feel like I'm late. And I would be showing up late chronically. And my health started to be really challenged. I found I was skipping workouts. It was a slippery slope. There's certain things, and even just the way I was showing up at events at times, like it just wasn't present in my own life. And feeling very lost. And I had an all-night bender this one night. And I still don't remember how I got home. I have no idea. I have no idea how I got home that night. But I woke up that next morning, and it wasn't morning, it was closer to noon, on our carpet. I was on the floor in our bedroom, and pasted with a bunch of stuff on the side of my mouth, probably drool and stuff. And you're wiping the sleep from your eyes and all that. And sun's coming in through the window. I just remember the hangover was just horrendous. I described it at times. It felt like I had 9-inch nails sticking in my temples. It was just like, I just felt it was not a pleasant morning. And could hear the kids downstairs, my wife downstairs. I knew she was downstairs because she was unloading the dishwasher with extreme passion. Every dish, every utensil, if it could clang, it clanged, and clanged loudly. It was like she was making a statement. It's like, you better wake up. It was my alarm. And I made my way down the hall to the kitchen, and she just glared at me. She glared at me. And normally my wife, though, like, I share in the TED Talk, this is sort of the beginning story at the TED Talk. I'm going into more detail here, obviously, because we have the gift of time right now. And my wife's always been that person in my life. And I stated this in the TED Talk where whenever she looked at me, all she saw was massive potential. She always saw the person that I was becoming before I even knew who that was, or even if I wanted that. And I really hope that everybody has that kind of a person in their life that can see in you the potential of what you're becoming, and are able to support you and encourage you along the way as you're evolving into that person. But a lot of that has to happen on our own, right? Like, we still have to be the active participant willing to go that path. And at some point along the road, I decided I didn't want to pursue that any longer. I got stuck. And that morning, she didn't look at me with those eyes that she normally did. And that was my first sign that, oh boy, there's something serious happening here right now. And so she sat me down, and we had a lengthy conversation about what could life look like, us being separated. How would we co-parent? How would we be there for our kids? How would we manage the household finance? Like, it was this conversation that I was not prepared for. But obviously she'd been thinking about it because she brought up, and this is the piece that really kickstarted my shift, was she was acknowledging that our environment that we were bringing our kids up in wasn't a healthy environment any longer. And I couldn't argue that. I couldn't. I had nothing to say. Here I'm a guy that's worked in sales for like 20 years. I can sell anything, I can get myself out of anything. I can just talk and I'll make it right. And I realized I couldn't say a single thing because she was absolutely correct. And I was not prepared for us to go separate ways. I did not want that, because I knew if that happens, it's over. Who knows where I would have ended up. Like, I already knew I was in a bad place, and it was only going to get worse if I didn't have my family there, because it was one of my pillars. It was something that I did prioritize, even though I wasn't acting like it. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance, right? And it was these fancy terms. You look it up. It's basically that was a description of me back then. Look it up on Wikipedia. It's probably got my picture there. But I was feeling that way, and which was also fueling a lot of my decisions and actions. And she asked me a question. And this, Kristen, is the question, of all questions. And I want people to take note right now, because this has probably been the most guiding question I've ever been asked in my entire life. I know I'm building it up. Okay, so here's the question. She said, Dai, are you being the type of man you'd want your daughters to marry. Are you being the type of man you would want your daughters to marry? And I was just silent. It was just weird how all of a sudden this one question stimulated so much visions in my head, especially visions of me and actions I had taken up to that point in my life, specifically, you know, as a father, you know, as a partner, as a brother, as a friend, you know, it was like life flashing before my eyes, you know, and I had this vision of like somebody like me at that time showing up on my doorstep to ask if they could take my daughter out. You know, obviously not at that age. I won't say they're old enough, but if that happened, I wouldn't let them across my threshold. You know, there's no way you're coming in here. Get the hell out. You can't see my daughter. No, like, and yet that's who I was, and that's who I was role modeling. I was saying, this is okay. This is kind of, you know, this is what a man is. This is what a husband is. This is what a father is. You know, like that's what I was saying through my actions, as well as my words or lack of. And right then and there, I made a commitment to go 1 year without drinking. 1 year. That's all how it started. It was just like, I'm going to go 1 year. I'm not going to have any alcohol. I'm going to figure out a way to be dealing with my stress, my anxiety, these challenges that I'm identifying as my reason for drinking. I'm going to figure out a healthier way to deal with that. 3 weeks in, I realized I have no idea how to do this. You know, like I am feeling really lost again. And yet I'm not going to drink. I made a commitment, especially to my girls on the couch that morning with my wife there. I said, Daddy's going to go 1 year without drinking. My daughter at the time, I remember Chardonnay, 6 years old. She had a lazy eye in her early days. And so we had these really heavy prescription glasses to fix that. Mm-hmm. And so she got these big Coke bottle glasses. She's looking up from the couch. She's like, okay, so no coffee, no pop. You know, like, I'm like, no, the adult drinks, no adult drinks for a year. And so I made a commitment to my kids. I'm not going to break this commitment. There's no way. I'm not going to do that. I will not be that guy. Mm-hmm. And 3 weeks in, I realized I need some help. I remember going to a couple meetings thinking that maybe there's a solution there. Maybe I can meet some other people that have struggled with this kind of a change. And a couple meetings, that's all I did. And I realized, you know, the STEP program wasn't for me. I didn't resonate with it. I have a lot of good friends that are in recovery that are in different programs, especially 12-step programs. They're great. You know, I'm not here to bash them at all. I think they're a great solution for certain people. It wasn't the right fix for me. And so I found a psychologist, started working with him for 4.5, 5 months. I found a relationships counselor, you know, that I worked with. Well, actually, Christy and I went together, and 2 sessions in, she's like, you know, Christy, I think it'd be beneficial for Dai to just come on his own, you know? And so, yeah, I did. And that was another 3 months. And I found some new communities like Toastmasters. I really got involved into CrossFit again. I just really took an active interest in my health. And one of the biggest things I did was I just wanted to start delivering value to other people. Like, you know, when you start doing the deep dive on self-care and mental health and some of the best ways to improve your mental health, it's actually serving others. And this is well documented, you know, in clinical settings and just in real life, okay, where they found that people actually have improved mental health and more positive outlook on their own lives and other people's lives, and the world views improve by giving of themselves to other individuals or organizations or groups or et cetera. And so that's where we really dove in to some of the groups that I talked about. You know, it happened during this period of clarity, or at least seeking clarity. And it really helped me with maintaining that. So I got to the end of the year, my wife's like, you know, hey, so we going to celebrate with a drink? And I'm like, no, I don't feel like I need it. I'm okay. I'm just going to keep going. Let's just see what happens. Because I had experienced so much personal and professional growth in that 12 months without alcohol. I was like, wow, I've grown more, literally. Like I felt I grew more in that 12 months than I had probably in the previous 5 years. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to continue that trajectory. I wanted to continue to learn more about me, challenge some of my insecurities, challenge some of my hard-coded belief systems that I knew were rather naive. And when I say naive, I just mean I had certain beliefs, you know, around people, around ways of doing things that I'd learned or been role model to me that now I thought were okay. Like even just basic things like men don't cry. Like boys don't cry, men don't cry. Like, no, like, just even be able to open up and cry during a movie because in front of my family. Like, it may seem really small and rather, some people might think that sounds rather insignificant, but for me, it was everything. Because it was a sign that what I was doing, the work I was doing, that connection of being okay with who I am, where I'm at, and not being worried about what anybody else thinks was actually starting to come forward. And being able to cry with my 3 ladies in my life beside me, watching a great movie with a powerful message, that was everything, And I know it sounds really small, but to me, that was one of the signs that I was like, wow, I just felt more connected to me, who I was, people that I was getting around, and just, it was just, everything changed, and this has been a period now, well over 10 years of being very intentional with this continuous growth, or as people will call self-education, right? This idea of just taking the education on for ourselves so we can continue to grow. I mean, your podcast is a wonderful example of that. I mean, you're providing people with continued self-education, right? And as well as yourselves, obviously, but you're providing a great outlet for people to plug in so they can expand and grow. And that's sort of the backstory to what inspired the TED Talk. And but then I tie it into why the Mentorship Mondays and those kind of communities really have helped me. But I needed to go through my own change. Had I not done that Mentorship Mondays, I know wouldn't have happened, at least not with me there. It would have happened. I truly believe it would have happened, but somebody else would have been doing it, but it's all part of that journey,
So where can our listeners go to find out more about you and the work you're doing?
Well, I'm online. And, I'm most active on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Those are my 3 preferred channels. And you just got to type in my name and you'll find me. Dai, D-A-I, Manuel, M-A-N-U-E-L. Yeah, so it's a Welsh first name, Portuguese last name. But as I tell everybody, it's all good. I'm Canadian, okay? 100%. So, anybody that comes up to Canada, there's a lot of mix up here. So, and also I have a website, daimanuel.com, and I think I'm almost to 2,000 articles. I think I'm just about there. I think I'm at like 1960. I'm hoping by the end of the year I'll have over 2,000 articles finally posted. Wow. And but I've been blogging for like 14 years, so it's like a long time coming. And but it's all just free information, great resources, some stories. I started blogging because of CrossFit, like legitimately. I started my blog as Moose is Loose. And that was the nickname Patty gave me, was Moose. And I remember because I needed something to document my journey in this new modality. Back then, like CrossFit, like 15 years ago, it was the new kid in the block. It was exciting. It was weird. It was grassroots, right? It's not what it is now, but it was fun. And I remember blogging about the workouts of the day and my experience and what I was doing, because I was the traditional gym guy before that, right? It was like, periodization, supersets, like work out in front of the mirror, that's who I was. And I was very narrow-minded in what I believe fitness was. My definition of fitness specifically was very singular and focused. And so CrossFit was great for challenging a lot of my belief systems. And so I wanted to share that. And so my blog literally started as an accountability tool for myself. To keep up with that journey. And now it's morphed into something so much more. And it's just a resource and tools for people to plug into. And I even give away my book for free, digital copy. Of course, if you want to buy it, I thank you. And my publisher thanks you, because we don't make anything on the free ones, obviously. But you can pick them up, Barnes & Nobles, Chapters, Amazon, whatever. So that's how you can get a hold of me. And I say, just reach out and say, hey, I'm a pirate too, and that's a great way for me to know exactly where you're coming from. And let's just start a conversation. It's a wonderful place to begin.
Yeah, I love that. And we didn't get into the broken fitness industry, but I am hoping to get Patty on here. So,
so you're blocking off an afternoon?
Yeah, we'll reserve. That'll be a special 4-hour episode.
I was going to say it'll be like a Joe Rogan, Tim Ferriss, marathon episode, right? Oh my gosh, there's some deep rabbit holes there. So good luck.
Definitely. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love it. You know,
just
I love what you guys are
convincing
doing.
Thank you.
What's the plans? Where does this go next? Like for you guys, I'm just curious. Like, what's the pirate community? Where is that going to be? Where's it going?
Yeah, well, we've already been hosting some workshops. So Kristen and I met through a group called Enlifted, and I'll tell you all about that offline. And Kristen and I host our own groups and workshops. They're 4-week group program, and we're really hoping to expand that and expand that more into the pirate community and get a little bit pirate with our workshops and, you know, helping people with creating their code or just learning, much like our conversation, what does it even mean to be pirate and how can we be more pirate in our life? And, you know, the people that have listened to more than one of these episodes knows that like both Kristen and I's story started last year in the pandemic when we quit our jobs. So much of what you said resonated because it was just, you know, a little preemptive, but making plans to go back to work during the lockdown last year, knowing now that we know that wouldn't have happened anyways, but realizing like, oh, fuck, no, I don't want to. And, you know, for myself was coaching part-time at Madlab. And you know, we talk a lot in this program about giving ourselves permission and, you know, took that permission to go all in on myself and do what it is I wanted. And you talk about impact, which is like, I've said this before on this podcast. So the first article in my pirate code is impact over everything with the work that I do. And then Kristen had a similar story with what she was teaching. And I'll just speak for Kristen.
What did I do?
And then Kristen quit her job as well. So she can go all in on herself. And that's one of the things that bonded us and really started this. Like that was we both started our pirate journeys at this very similar time in a very similar way. And we wanted to highlight, we know we have a community that we belong to called the Enlifted community, lots of different, so many different pirates in that community. And we're now continue to expand. We want to meet all the cool pirates out there and the people that are doing really cool shit. And we want to talk to them. And like you said, educate, inspire. And that's the whole purpose around this podcast is to share these inspirational messages. And if we can help just one person get unstuck, because being stuck, that is such a common theme, being in a rut. Those are all the things that really led to a way more pirate life, right? So anything we can do to help those.
I love this. It's so amazing. You guys are great.
Thank you.
Well, and before you go, before we wrap with you, we do have, two things. I'm going to challenge you on this one question. So I want to know how you'd recommend our listeners to start their own pirate life. And my challenge is 2 sentences or less.
Okay, good. I'm glad you've given me a cap
parameter.
Let's think here. I'm like, I only got 10. Wait, sorry. I was gonna say like 10 words, but no, I can do more. I can do run-on sentence. So that's actually what I've talked. I think it's been a 90-minute run-on sentence. But I think, you know, the part, I think number 1, stop listening to others, you know, start living the life you want to live, not the life that other people expected of you. Number 1, as well as stop limiting your happiness. It's amazing once you get back into that happy place, you know, and when I say happy place, when you start to realize it doesn't take much to be happy. And when you get to that place and you realize that, whoa, creative juices flow and expand. Like it's wild, right? Or well, you know, it's sort of piggybacks sort of the gratitude idea too. But that would be what I would say, you know, like those 2 little things first and foremost. But there's a lot there. And have you guys ever read 5 Regrets of the Dying? Have you heard of that?
No.
Oh, geez. Okay, check it out. Bronnie Ware. She does a great TED Talk, but her book's really good too, and talks about the 5 regrets of the dying. Just real quick on that, it's so she's a care aide, and she was working with people at end of life as a nurse, as an RN. And she had great bedside manner. So she would often have conversations with these people that are at end of life, and different stages of end of life. And a lot of times they're on their own, right? Like they're there by themselves. You have these people that are elderly and just, families aren't there. And that's hard, right? When you really start to think about that, it's like, wow, I mean, it is a journey you got to take on your own, right? Like there's nobody else there with you. And even if they're around you, they can't go with you, and so she would ask them, is there anything that you regret not doing in your life? And what surprised her the most was there was 5 regrets that almost every single person had, at least one of them, if not all of them. And she wrote a book about it. Mm. And I mean, we're talking from tons of people that she would interviewed over the span of her career asking that question. And it's wild to see the same 5 regrets again and again and again. And one of the ones was, I wish I had allowed myself to live the life I wanted to live, not the life other people expected of me. Mm-hmm. That one resonates with me a lot, because a lot of my decisions were always based on what I felt I wanted people to think about me. Mm-hmm. Like it influenced most of my life. Now I don't give a fuck. So, like I'm like, whatever. As long as I'm authentic and I'm doing me the way I want to do me, take it or leave it. It's like, whatever, hopefully I'm always going to be respectful and you're going to recognize that. But, I can't live anybody else's life but my own,
Totally.
And so I know you two, when you dive into that, you'll probably have a whole episode about you two talking about it. But it is super inspiring. And I only became aware of it because of dealing with some of the grief, what I experienced with my dad at his end of life. I just started going down the rabbit hole, and I found this and I was like, wow, this is interesting. And I was just like, whoa. And so I thank my dad for that. There was one extra lesson, even though he wasn't directly involved with that, he inspired me to go learn that. And to hear that message, right? So that's what I take away from my end of life experience with my dad. He's still teaching me here and there. But anyways, I know we were trying to say goodbye, and I just went off in a completely different tangent. As you guys can tell, I can talk.
Yeah.
So,
this is not the first time that deathbed regrets has come up on this podcast. So not the book, but just in general, making sure that at the end that you have no regrets when it's time to go. Right.
Exactly. And hey, we only got one of these, at least from what I understand, we only get one, but I don't know. I mean, there might be other ones out there, but at least I'm going to treat this as my only one. So why not make it the best go possible? Right. And geesh.
Kristen's got one more question for you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's a very important one. Do you know any pirate jokes?
It's probably the same one you get all the time. And it's like the original pirate dad joke. But, what is a pirate's favorite letter?
What is it?
R?
R, it ain't. It'd always be the C. Anyways.
So good.
But we always think it's R. I know. But it's the C. Okay. But I feel like a little pirate dance. But I also love what you guys do. You have no idea how inspired I feel after just having this opportunity to talk, because I feel like it's been almost one directional, a spew of consciousness, but I absolutely love how you're making an impact and inspiring communities everywhere with the content you're putting out there. And I'm dead serious. If I can be of any service or help or support, please know I'm here.
Thank you, Dai. Thanks for coming. And this has been a great conversation. Well, monologue.
Yeah. I promise I won't talk so much next time.
It was great.
Well, thank you both so much. I really appreciate it.